Okay, I'm here in the practice problems, set 5. I'm going to do 12 through 15. And I'll start by saying that this is explained. This may have changed a little bit by the time you're reading it, but in the textbook, there is a section on theorems. And the idea is that we can provide a proof for a sentence with no premises. So when this is represented in TFL, truth functional logic, we just have a turnstile and the sentence that we want to prove. All right, so we'll start with this one. Turnstile, so our conclusion is not, then in parentheses, B and not B. Okay, so when you're doing these kinds of problems, you always have to start with an assumption. If you don't have premises, then you're not going to start by listing any premises, of course. So we need to make an assumption, and that's going to be B and, not B. Okay, so we start this way. Next, what we want to do is conjunction a limb twice. Okay, so we've made this assumption, B and not B, and now here on lines 2 and 3, we have a contradiction. So on line 4, we're going to put the opposite of our assumption. And that's negation intro, lines 1 through 3. Okay, and there we are. So it works, of course. The two important things to keep in mind when you have a theorem, that is when you have a sentence and nothing before the turnstile, is that one, you're going to need to start by making an assumption. And so you should think about whether that assumption is for negation intro. I think negation a limb might be less common. In any case, the rules where we need to make assumptions, negation intro, negation a limb, and conditional intro. So you need to think about which rule you're going to use when you finish the subproof. And then just the other thing to keep in mind is that you're going to be doing the same things that you already know how to do. The subproof that you create and the rules that you use are exactly the same as everything else that you've done up to this point. Okay, so next we have this one, which is very similar. Maybe you want to try it yourself and then watch me do it. Let's see, so we will start with this assumption. Again, we'll do conjunction a limb. Okay, so on lines 2 and 3, we have a contradiction. So on line 4, back against the main line of the proof, we're going to put negation intro 1 through 3 again. All right. Okay, so here we want to end up with a conditional. So when we make our assumption, it's going to be an assumption for the conditional introduction rule. All right, so that means that our assumption is going to be the antecedent of the conditional that we want to end up with. That is what comes before the arrow. So we assume D. Now, let's see. Okay, we actually need to make another assumption. So for the conditional that we want to end up with, this full thing here is the antecedent. This full thing here is the consequent. However, this is itself a conditional, of course. So we need to use the conditional introduction rule to get G arrow D. So again, we'll assume the antecedent of this conditional here. Then we can bring down the D with the reiteration rule. All right, so here on line 4, 2 through 3, Okay, so here we have on line 2, we made our assumption. On line 3, we have the consequent, what comes after the arrow, of the conditional that we want, G arrow D. So on line 4, we can put that conditional. And now on line 5, against the main line of the proof, we can put D arrow, and now this is the consequent of this conditional. Arrow intro 1 through 4. All right, so let's see here. Okay, so again, we've got conditionals inside conditionals. Here's a biconditional. We need to keep track of all these brackets. So the first thing to note is that this is the antecedent of the conditional that we want to end up with. So we want to begin by assuming okay, now we want this whole thing to be the consequent of the conditional that we end up with, but this is itself a conditional, so we need to get this conditional using the conditional introduction rule. And for this one, T arrow R is the antecedent. So we will assume if T then R. Okay, now let's see. So this R double arrow T is the consequent of this conditional. And so we can get R if and only if T. That's the biconditional introduction rule. Let's see, 1 and 2. So you need a comma there, not a dash. All right, so now on line 4, the assumption we made is the antecedent. R double arrow T is the consequent. That's arrow intro 2 through 3. And now on line 5, the first assumption we made is the antecedent. And then what we have on line 4 is the consequent. Okay, just got to make sure you have all the right parentheses. Arrow intro, what do we got here? 1 through 4, and we're done. All right, good luck.